All of them kind. I haven't had one letter which hasn't been kind. Some of them surprised me a little bit. A number of very good and conscientious people have written to convert me to their way of thinking. One lady wrote to me and said, "You have a very kind face. I could tell that by looking at you in the newspapers, but one look and I could see you had never been baptized." Well, I got quite a kick out of that. I thought I'd better go back and look up my baptismal record. And then, of course, I've had a great many letters from people who had cures. You'd be amazed at how many cures have been developed. I understand, by the way, that the International Business Machine people maintain that if they could get hold of all the cures for cancer and put them through one of their screening processes, they could probably hit the right one. That is someplace there in the research. But I had one man who wrote to me and said that if for the rest of my life I would drink nothing but carrot juice, I'd live. I preferred to die. Another man, of course, this grape cure. I don't know whether you've heard of that. You eat nothing but grapes for the rest of your life. And then, of course, a number of people have written in their experiences. But the letters that have interested me most, I think, have been the letters from cancer patients. Young men with cancers. Husbands whose wives have discovered they had cancer. People who have been pretty low over the whole idea. Well, I've had hundreds of those. It's been quite a task, but so far I have been able to answer every letter that came to me. And I've made them as personal as I could make them. Because I thought anyone who was nice enough to write to me under those circumstances deserved a personal letter. They've been wonderful people.
Yeah, but with all these letters to answer and all these things, you have still kept pretty busy. You're in, as this broadcast is being recorded, it's going to be run a few days after this great preview of this University of Detroit film, this Light Up the Land. Now, you did a lot of work after you got out of the hospital on that. You went to...
Oh, yes. When the doctors told me what was the trouble, I said, well, does that mean I retire or do I keep on? And my doctors, who have known me for years, said, the only thing in the world for you is just to keep on your normal way of living. So, just as a matter of interest, George, in the last few days, I have come from Milwaukee, where I gave the commencement address to 10,000 friends and 900 graduates of Marquette University. And just before that, I was up in Toronto, where we were getting ready for our big Marion Year show, which will be put on for 11 days in the Coliseum of Toronto, beginning October the 8th. That's a little plug, by the way. Detroit isn't very far from Toronto. I go back to St. Louis, and I start a 6-day summer school in which I shall teach 3 hours a day. And that will mean being on my feet and doing a considerable amount of talking for that time. So, lots going on.
You're still interested in the typewriter and in music, but principally in people.
Well, the most interesting thing in the world is people, as you know. No one knows it better than you, and no one has lived it more than you. To me, everything in the world is directed to people. If I have written, I have never written anything in my life merely for the joy of writing it. I've always felt that was a temptation which I sincerely resisted. There was only a certain amount of time to write, and I have never written without someone definitely across the table, almost whose face I could visualize. To me, everything that I have ever done has always been with people in mind. I don't think I could change that.
There's another type of cancer in the world, and I didn't even expect as we sat here, Father Lloyd, we'd even get to that point. But when you mentioned it, I think there's a type of cancer we've got to cure, and that's the cancer of communism.
Quite. But the answer to me on that always remains the same. The answer to communism is Christian democracy, and until we are willing to live like Christians and act like Democrats, we are not going to lick communism. Every time a neighborhood takes an attitude of hatred or bigotry toward a racial group or an inferiority group, a minority group, we have no inferiors. A minority group, we are just handing the communists a ready-made victory on the battlefield. Every time that we exploit a laboring man, every time we tax business out of existence, we are making another easy conquest for the communists. When we'll start to live like Christians and start to live like Democrats, we don't need to worry about the communists.
Well, I was thinking of comparing it with cancer in this respect. You remove a little portion of cancer, and we still leave the seat of it.
That's right.
Well, in Korea, we removed a little portion of it. In Indochina, if it's necessary to go in there with our men, which I hope it will never be, we'll only remove a little seat of that. I don't think that's getting at the root of cancer.
No, but I think when my doctors gave me the recipe for still staying alive, they gave the recipe to your problem there. They said, develop your healthy cells. I went up to Toronto recently, and the question was, would I take the cobalt treatment? They said, no. It's wonderful, but don't take it. Develop your healthy cells. The healthy cells will take care of the sick cells and the well cells. Now, what we have tended to think of is let's fight communism instead of let's develop our own healthy national life. If we had any place in the world, a spot where we could say there is a practicing Christian democracy, we could point it out, it would be such a shining example to the rest of the world that everybody would be itching to get it. You wouldn't have to fight them.
Well, then, out of this discussion of your own personal ailment this Sunday afternoon, we have developed this question of healthy cells. And I think that's one of the most interesting things I've ever heard.
Healthy families, healthy communities, healthy business, healthy labor unions. Every time you get one of those things that's sick, you've got a disease center, a focus of infection. And that's the reason why each one of us is such a very important person. We talk about democracy. There isn't any such thing. There's just the men who make it up. We talk about government, that abstract thing that nobody has ever seen and never will see, thank God. Government is people. We're back on it again, George. It's people. Yep. And as long as the people are healthy, the cells are healthy, and the body is healthy.
Perhaps then we may be able sometime, Father Lord, to start a campaign of healthy cells.
Absolutely. Let's get healthy.
I'd like to take this last 3 or 4 minutes to repeat the philosophy, knowing that there are men and women, young and old, listening today who have fears, who may have cancer, who do not have the attitude toward this coming to the end of the road that you have. And we all come to the end of the road.
Oh,
we get on the elevator going down.
And we the next one.
That's right.
Well, it's a good deal like this. First of all, when I got the word that I had cancer, and it was an incurable cancer, I must admit that I had a feeling of relief. There were a great many diseases I don't think I would have had the patience to bear. Cancer was not one of them. As Time magazine always says when it talks about the death of somebody that's interested in, death, as it must come to all, came last night too, and then mentions his name. As it must come to all. Now that's the beginning. If for me the end of the road was the end of the road, I probably should dread it. I don't believe it is. I believe it's the beginning of the more abundant life of which Christ spoke when he said, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. So actually, we have been living, each one of us, in preparation for the moment when the bright angel of death would come and say, you're going to walk through the gates of the grave, which look black and dark, but on the other side is life and the more abundant life. That's the first. Then it seemed to me that I was given an opportunity to clean up a lot of work that was unfinished, to get a lot of things straightened out, to see friends that I had been neglecting. I've even started, however far I'll get with it, to write my own story, just because I thought it was of interest to me and a few of my friends. Then I found out all of a sudden that life looked very precious. The world